Today at work, I was trying to call my wife, but for some reason, my phone calls weren't getting through to her, so I used one of my coworkers' phones to dial my house number and call home. So I call home, and a sweet voice answers the phone. It's my daughter. I go, "Hey, cutie, how you doing?" She goes, "Hey, daddy, what's up?" And I go, "I'm just at work. What are you and mommy doing?" She says, "Well, I just finished lunch, and mommy's upstairs." I go, "Cutie, what's mommy doing upstairs?" She goes, "She's with Uncle Paul." And I go, "Uncle Paul? We don't have an Uncle Paul. What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, she's with Uncle Paul. They're upstairs in her room." So I'm like, "Cutie, that doesn't sound right. So what I want you to do is I want you to leave the phone on the kitchen table, go upstairs to your mommy's room and say, 'Hey, daddy just pulled in the driveway,' and tell me what happens, all right?" She did it, and like a minute later, she comes back and picks up the phone and goes, "Okay, daddy, I did it." And I go, "Okay, what happened?" She goes, "Well, mommy came running out of her room naked, and she tripped down the stairs and bumped her head, and now she can't get up." So I was like, "What about the other guy?" And she goes, "Well, Uncle Paul tried to jump out of the window into the pool, but he missed and hit the floor. Now he won't wake up." So I was like, "We don't have a pool." Then I look at the phone number and I was like, "Oh, sorry, wrong number."
Extremely creepy story time on how my aunt passed away. So a little background information. About 5 years ago, my aunt had gotten pregnant. It was really weird because a few months before she got pregnant, the doctor told her that she would never be able to have kids. And her husband had been trying for years. Well, I think like 2 weeks after the baby was born, it had passed away. And I don't really know why. For some reason, my mom won't tell me. Which is weird, but anyways, after that, my aunt just felt like a lot of things weren't going the way that she wanted them to in her life. So she decided to get closer with God. Well, every Sunday night, we go to my grandparents' house for a family dinner. And while we were there, my aunt starts going on this whole rampage. She said that God's not giving her the answers that she needs, and I don't really know what she means by answers. So my grandparents kick her out because she's acting like a psycho. Well, the same night at 3 a.m. in the morning, we hear a knocking on the door. And lo and behold, it's my aunt. So my mom lets her in because she feels bad and feels like she's the only one that will actually listen to my aunt. So she makes everybody sit at the kitchen table. And she pulls out a Ouija board from her bag, like for part 2. Story time about how my aunt passed away, part 2. So like I said, she makes us all sit down at the kitchen table and she pulls out a Ouija board. She was like, "I found out how I can get some answers. I just feel like I need you guys around me for positive energy." And my family is very, very religious. Like, we don't fuck with that shit. But because my mom felt bad for her, she let her use it in our house. But my mom didn't want my sisters and I around that, so she just sent us to bed. Well, the next morning, I wake up and I ask my mom what happened with the Ouija board situation. My mom just said that it was really scary, because before she thought it was like a load of bullshit, and she said that her and my dad didn't touch the Ouija board, because like I said, they were very religious and did not mess with that stuff. But apparently, it said for her not to buy a house with the numbers 2815. Well, 2 years later, my aunt got remarried, and her husband ended up having 2 kids. So they bought a new house, and no, it didn't have the numbers on it. One of their kids accidentally shattered the glass door, so they went and got a new one, and it came with those exact numbers on it. 2 days later, the house burnt down and nobody survived. Every time about how my best friend found out that I hooked up with her boyfriend. A little background information. I was in high school, and I was best friends with this girl. We're gonna call her M. Well, M and I both had boyfriends, and they were also best friends. But I was super close with her boyfriend, because we had been best friends for like 3 years before they even started dating. Well, the one night we're all at my house, and we're all drinking, having a good time, and I always felt like I had feelings for him, aka my best friend's boyfriend. Well, my boyfriend had to go to his house to get some clothes, and M was the only one sober, so she drove him. So her boyfriend and I are sitting in the living room, and we're gonna call him Nate. Well, Nate and I get to talking, and we were saying how crazy it would be if we started dating. And then I told him that I had feelings for him. And he said that he did too. So we decided to be terrible people and we hooked up. And after that, we definitely knew that there weren't any feelings there. But he went and got a shower because he had my lipstick all over him and he was really sweaty. Then my best friend got back, like for part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend found out that I hooked up with her boyfriend. So like I said, her and my boyfriend finally got back to my house. And she goes, "Oh, where's Nate?" And I told her that Nate was in the shower. I told her that whenever he was trying to pour a drink, he spilt vodka all over his clothes. So we're all sitting there, and then he comes out in the exact same clothes that he had on before. And she was like, "Oh, I thought you spilt vodka all over your clothes." And he was like, "Oh, we put them in the dryer." So she literally got up, went over, and smelt his clothes, and they did not smell like vodka. So after that, she starts flipping the fuck out. She's like, "Why don't your fucking clothes smell like vodka?" And then he came up with something. He was like, "Oh, she got confused. I spilled water all over my clothes." So as we're all watching a movie, I realized that Nate has a hickey on his neck. From me. So I started having her drink a lot because maybe she wouldn't remember and she would have thought that she gave it to him. Well, I woke up the next morning and nobody was at my house. And when I went into the bathroom, I saw that all my hair was cut off.
This is why waking up late might just save your life. One day when I was in elementary school, my mom and I both overslept, which meant I wouldn't be ready in time to get on the bus. School started at 8, my bus pickup time was at 7, and it was already 6:40 or something. I was still in my PJs and hadn't even had breakfast yet. My mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. It's 6:50, I'm in my PJs eating breakfast, and that's when we hear the bus pull up 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. My mom peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closed the door and came back inside, but the bus didn't pull away. There's a knock at the door and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains he's a substitute bus driver because the regular driver called in sick and that he's early because he wanted to get an early start on the route. My mom says she's taking me to school because we woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says he can wait a few minutes since he's already ahead of schedule. My mom says that we won't be ready in a few minutes and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed really angry about this, but turned around, got back on the bus and left. But at 7 a.m., another bus pulls up to my house. My mom went out to talk to them and came back looking terrified. Part 2 of why sleeping in might just save your life. After talking to the bus driver, my mom came back looking terrified, but she didn't say anything about it and told me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but my mom would end up telling me a few years later. When she went to the second bus, she found out it was being driven by my regular driver and it was full of other kids that are usually on my route. By the way, the other bus was empty. My mom asked the driver about the substitute driver and about him calling in sick. He tells her that he never called in sick and there is no substitute driver on his route. The driver immediately called dispatch in a panic and told my mom to go inside and call the police and report this incident, which she did without me knowing at the time. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a kidnapper who had targeted me. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver. But chances are, had I gotten on that bus, I would never have made it to school or back home. And if we hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus.
Story time. My toxic best friend outed me to the entire school. So one day, one of my best friends from a neighboring school decided to move to my school, and she was extremely upset because her best friend over there came out as bi. So I ended up using this as an opportunity to come out bi as well. And she was like, well, it's okay for you. I just got really close to her. We'll call the girl Becky because no one likes a Becky. And we can call her friend Heather. So fast forward to after the situation had calmed down, we decided to all go prom dress shopping. So Heather and I were talking and we really hit it off. And I think Becky legitimately forgot about our sexuality because we were all talking about how much we have in common and we brought that up as well. She just looked at us and was like, oh, I forgot about that. And she just shrugged it off. But we continued to hang out for a few weeks. One of these weekends, we all went to church together and the sermon was about how God accepts you no matter what your sexuality is. But of course, Becky turns around to us and says that Heather and I could never date because it would F everything up. Later that day, Heather actually ended up admitting that she had feelings for me, and this is when Becky lost it. Stay tuned for part 2 and follow part 2 of my toxic best friend outing me to the entire school. So at the beach later that day, Heather and I decided to tell Becky how we felt. She freaked and wouldn't talk to us and locked herself in the bathroom. And we had to tell her that it's fine, we won't date, just so she would let herself out. I thought she was being entirely selfish, not wanting her best friends to be happy. And then she literally took my phone and went through all of our texts together. She woke up the next day all ready for Heather and I to be together and completely apologized. And then when we went to the mall that day, she walked away from us to go look at the hot guys, but then turned around and got pissed at us for falling behind. And this is why she said she didn't want us to date, yet we weren't even dating. She said she felt like she was gonna have to choose between Heather and I because of the whole situation, and I guess she just picked me. Becky became extremely codependent and didn't want to leave my side. She was pissed if I spent time with anyone else and basically forced Heather out of my life. I ended up running into Heather and inviting her to my 18th birthday, and this is when Becky had her massive breakdown. At my birthday, she outed me to everyone at the party, my mom, and Heather's mom as well. My Insta is linked below for more content.
So when I was in 4th grade, slime was really popular. It was so popular to the point everyone was making it and people would trade their slimes all the time. I was one of those people. I also did YouTube videos and some of the kids from my school would watch them. I basically did slime tutorials and I would sell my slimes for 50 cents. One time I got a comment from this girl named Augusty Musty. She commented on my video saying how she wanted to buy the slime I made. I said yes, of course. The next day at recess we both met behind the basketball courts. I brought the slime she asked for and told her that it would cost 50 cents. This bitch said she only brought a quarter. She kept demanding me to give her the slime for a quarter, so I had enough. I slapped that hoe in the head with the slime and the slime got stuck in her hair. I started putting more slime in her hair. Then when it was all in there I yanked the slime out. I swear I ripped so much hair out of her head that she looked like an egg. Her hair came out in clumps and it looked like she had lice and fleas. I pulled her hair so hard it made her shart. She pulled the most clumpy, Donald Trumpy, very lumpy, made her grumpy, Humpty Dumpty, smelled like a dumpy, made roads bumpy, made me thinky, it smelled stinky, made the boys winky, marker inky, wanna linky. I ran far, hit her with the car, went to the bar, twinkle twinkle little star, gave her scars, smoked cigars, sounded like a jaguar, went to Mars, shit I have ever seen. She went to the hospital and she turned out to have bowel cancer.
Story time about why my lunch lady always hated me in high school. Never thought this would happen to me. This story takes the biggest turn at the end. Okay, so it first started off as just my lunch lady eyeing me weird. Whenever I would enter the cafeteria or whenever I would pay for my food, she would always give me the weirdest look. And then sometimes she wouldn't even let me get lunch. She would say, oh, you don't have enough money on your account. When I knew the day before I just put money in. So then I wouldn't be able to eat lunch. I reported her a couple times. Mind you, my mom works at the school. I even told my mom about it. She would just lie and be like, I never said she couldn't get her food. Mom told me that if she ever refused to let me get food again, to just come up to her classroom and then she'll give me something to eat. But I was so confused because my mom works at the school and I expected her to talk to administration about how the lunch lady is treating her daughter. But she didn't say anything to administration until one day. This time I actually didn't have any money on my account and I did not know. Went to go get my lunch as usual. When I go to check out my food, the lunch lady throws her hands up, knocks my plate out of my hand. She says I'm just like my mom because we're both greedy. This is part 2 of why my lunch lady always hated me in high school. So like I said, this time I actually didn't have any money and I went to check out my food for lunch. The lunch lady knocks my plate over and says I'm just like my mom since we're both greedy. And I had no idea what she meant. Said she meant to throw her hands up. She didn't mean to knock over my plate. Everyone was looking at us and it was so awkward, so I just walked away. And I didn't even sit down for lunch. I just walked out of the cafeteria and went straight to my mom's classroom. I had no idea what the lunch lady was talking about. My mom doesn't even talk to her. Or at least, I thought she didn't. So like I said, I was on the way to my mom's classroom after the lunch lady yelled at me in front of the whole entire cafeteria. And once I got to my mom's classroom, I told her exactly what happened. She was in the middle of class. When I tell you my mom stormed out of her class, went straight to the cafeteria, pulled up on the lunch lady in front of everybody, and she grabs her by her hair. The lunch lady tried to grab to the cash register. The cash register fell and money went everywhere. All you could hear was the coins dropping on the floor like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. I was so close to jumping in, but my mom had her. Other teachers had to come into the cafeteria to break them up. And I got into this is part 3 of why my lunch lady always hated me in high school. Like I said, my mom dragged the lunch lady in front of everyone in the cafeteria. Some teachers came and pulled them apart. They immediately fired my mom, obviously. My mom said, forget this, forget y'all, and she took me and we both went home. Well, on the way home, she told me the beef with the lunch lady. So apparently the lunch lady had been flirting with the history teacher. And my mom and the history teacher were seeing each other on the low. My mom was married. So I was like, so what about dad? She said that my dad just didn't make her happy anymore. But the problem with the lunch lady was the fact that all the teachers at my school are messy as fuck. They all talk shit about each other. They're always talking about another teacher. And so basically all the staff knew, just because of rumors and gossip, that my mom and the history teacher were kind of seeing each other. Everyone knew, including the lunch lady. So once the lunch lady started flirting with the history teacher too, they low-key started having tension with each other. But it was unnecessary for the lunch lady to take out her anger on me, so that's why she whooped her ass. By the way, this happened when I was in high school. I am now graduated out of college. And
I'm sure many of us have encountered little shits in supermarkets. Kids running around, knocking things over, being rude, but the worst are the biters. Today I was shopping in the grocery store when a biter got me. He broke skin too and I started bleeding. When I saw the blood on his teeth and the grin he had, the gears started turning and I got an idea. Made my eyes go wide and started screaming, shit, fuck, no. My good friend was there too and he instantly picked up on what I was doing. He started shouting, fuck, maybe he didn't get it. Shit. By now, the kid is scared shitless and starts crying, and instantly his mom appears out of nowhere and starts getting pissy at us for yelling at her kid. Here's the kicker. I look her straight in the eye and say, ma'am, get your son tested as soon as possible. He just bit me and I'm HIV positive. And now there's silence, not a peep in the entire store. Brat knows he just fucked up big time because his mom isn't defending his ass. He stares at me wide-eyed and I walk away from them to buy my groceries. All while blood is dripping from my calf, making a nice little trail on the floor. Just as we're about to leave, we start to hear the mom sobbing like the little she is.